Hello again, and welcome to our Sunday news show. If you're looking to hear about interesting new trademarks that might result in some games coming back from the dead, or you're looking to hear about games that succeeded, or games that failed, the latest game announcements, more of Sony's live service disaster, or the bedlam at Bioware, you've come to the right place. I'm Burgh, welcome to Game Conclave, and as always, if you could just take a moment to like and subscribe, it would really help us out. After you watch this video, down in the comments, let us know what you thought of the stories, and thank you so much for watching. Without further ado, though, let's hop into the news from last week. Alright, first up, we got the trademark news. Now, we saw two awesome new trademarks last week, at least awesome in our book. Bandai Namco has retrademarked Tales of the Abyss, which is coming up on its 30th anniversary. A new trademark would suggest that a remaster or a remake of Tales of the Abyss will be coming down the line. And we think that's great. It's a fantastic game. Really, really good story. Some of the best character development I think I've ever seen for a main character. So if you're into good stories and character development, keep an eye out on this one. It's been locked away on the PS2 for 30 years, and I don't think it ever made the jump to PC. It just got a 3DS port. It's good to see that hopefully this means that it will be hitting more platforms because it's a great game. We also saw a trademark from Sega for Skies of Arcadia. This is another very old JRPG that has been locked away on older systems for quite some time. Skies of Arcadia originally came out on the Dreamcast, and then we saw an enhanced port on the Nintendo GameCube called Skies of Arcadia Legends. That had a little bit of extra content to it. This is a great RPG about playing as a group of sky pirates. It's got a fun turn-based elemental combat system. I said in some of our other news shows, I think Sega has been taking a really good path. They realize that they're sitting on all these IPs that have tons of nostalgia for people. They're resurrecting them either in-house or getting a third party to do it reboot it, like the Streets of Rage one, in a style that they themselves no longer do. And it's really smart. Just really, really good ideas coming from Sega, at least some of them. But we hope that Skies of Arcadia gets resurrected. So if we hear more about that, we'll let you know about that as soon as it materializes. Ubisoft has confirmed that the Prince of Persia The Lost Crown sold 1.3 million units, and I am sure that is well below what they were hoping for. I think we've already gotten word that they downsized this studio that made it, which is really just a shame. It's probably one of the better games of 2024. I think a lot of people were skeptical of this title because it was Ubisoft. They've made this reputation for themselves. They have a bad track record of games coming out being buggy and broken, and they've really lost the consumer's confidence. And it's just really sad because if they would just take the time to finish these games, they often make great games. They've made great games for a long time. They just make these stupid decisions. And if you want to pick up a copy of Prince of Persia The Lost Crown, it's probably going to be easy to find it dirt cheap soon. And good news based on sales, though, we know that Silent Hill 2 has sold over 2 million copies, and that's awesome. This was only available on PS5 and Steam, so it didn't have a really wide distribution net to get those sales in, and they did pretty good. So it was a great remake. We're looking forward to more down the line from Bloober Team, whether it's making more Silent Hill remakes now that they've proven they've got the chops, or just their own upcoming horror titles. They did a great job. I know it's not a 100% carbon copy of Silent Hill 2, but it was pretty darn faithful. So congrats to them. Xbox has announced Indiana Jones and the Great Circle has reached 4 million players. Reached. That's this new terminology you're going to see cropping up a lot because developers and publishers are going to start taking account for games on subscription services like Game Pass, and so the game's reach is going to be the new figure going forward. It's I think it's a strange metric, but it's just how things are going to be. So yeah, Indiana Jones has reached 4 million players. It hasn't even touched PlayStation 5 yet, which is coming down the line, so that number is only going to get bigger. And Hogwarts Lecacy has announced 30 million copies sold. Hogwarts Lecacy just has had serious legs so far. I won't be shocked If by the time this thing's finally done, we're going to hear about probably in the ballpark of 40 million lifetime sales. I'd give it another maybe a year or two, and we'll probably hear that figure. If you don't know, most games achieve about 70% of their lifetime sales in the first 3 months of release. So for a game to just keep on rolling and rolling and rolling sales like this just says it tapped into the right market, and it was a good game. Alright, now we got a couple of new game announcements. We have a new game announced called the Directorate Novitiate. This is a third-person, single-player action RPG developed by Nesting Games. This is a new studio made up of former developers from Capcom, Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers Games, that is, and Montreal Ubisoft. The game is going to take place in 2006, and you'll be playing in a seedy underworld filled with supernatural threats as the character Kana Luna, also known as Mercury, who is tracking down a serial killer. You will juggle your normal life during the day and then act as a magical hitman at night. So, that's kind of cool. They're promising a choice-driven narrative, romance, all those things you'd expect in a game with lots of dialogue choices. There'll be consequences to your decisions, and even your loved ones can get embroiled up in the story. And then some intense action-packed combat, merging of a traditional third-person shooter with powerful magical spells. So, I don't know, sounds like Mass Effect with magic, and hell yeah, I'm on board. It's going to be hitting early access later in the year, and we hope that this one's going to be coming out on consoles. I haven't seen anything about that yet, but with this kind of game, I won't be shocked to, once the early access comes out, to hear about console versions coming down the line. So when we hear more, so will you. The Sims 1 and 2 have returned to digital storefronts for PC. The Sims 1 is so old. It actually never even got a digital release. And the second one was only available through EA's own storefront until around 2014 when they removed it. So these games have not been available for quite some time. But they are now back on Steam, Epic, and the EA app. So if you needed to drown your Sims in the pool or what other various torture methods, or you actually want to just play the game the proper way and watch these people's lives unfold, you can do so on those three platforms. There's no official word on any console versions yet, but I wouldn't be surprised at a later date to hear about them maybe later in the year as they take some time to make them more console friendly. And in another return, Dino Crisis 1 and 2 have finally returned. It has been over 20 years since these games have been readily available. They were originally released on the PlayStation 1, and they were available digitally on the PlayStation 3. They might still be on the PlayStation 3 store. I'm not sure. It's so hard to remember what is and isn't available on there anymore, but they were at one point in time. I know I've got them on my PlayStation 3, so they were part of that PS1 Classics library. But they're going to be on PC now. They're going to be available via Good Old Games or GOG or GOG, whatever you or they are calling themselves these days. GOG is CDPR's answer to Steam. It's a platform where they make all sorts of games available and even preserve older titles by keeping them updated to work on modern PCs. It's a great site. They do a lot of really good stuff. I love Good Old Games. So if you were dying for some Dino Crisis, GOG's got them available now. Okay, and this one isn't really a new game, but it's an upcoming game, and it's kind of weird that this didn't coincide with the new game's announcement, but we just decided to throw it in here. But so it's been confirmed that People Can Fly will be working alongside the Coalition to co-develop the new Gears of War E-Day, the upcoming prequel where you play as a young Dom and Marcus. And again, I'm not really sure why they didn't announce that back when the game was announced. They just randomly threw it on social media this week. But People Can Fly was a support studio on the first Gears of War, and then they were co-developers along with Epic on Gears of War Judgment. And then the Coalition has developed Gears 4, 5, and Tactics. So between the two studios, there's a ton of experience on the franchise, so it should be a pretty darn good game. Alright, and we've got a whole slew of Sony stories for you. Sony has finally capitulated to the PC crowd and given up on the mandatory PlayStation Network accounts. They will now be optional for games going forward on Steam. If you do have one, they will give you all sorts of free goodies in the games, such as unlockable extra costumes in Spider-Man, skins in The Last of Us, stuff like that. They obviously want to entice players to sign up, but they have caved finally on this requirement, which was probably a smart idea. They probably should have caved back when all the Helldivers 2 fiasco hit. It just seriously tanked that game's reputation and player base. And I'm not sure why they persisted with it after that, but they thought that was going to be a winning strategy, and I don't think it was. So anyway, Sony has also announced that starting in January of 2026, PS4 games will no longer be a key benefit of your various PlayStation Plus tiers. So they're probably not going to be giving us many more PlayStation 4 games for free after that point if you are a subscriber to one of the various PlayStation Plus tiers. They're going to be mostly focusing on PS5 games for the system at that point, and this is obviously their tactic to try to get those people who still haven't upgraded from the PS4 to the PS5, and we'll see if it works. In bad news, yet again related to Sony canceling their dozens of live service games, they have now laid off contractors at Ben Studio. Ben Studio was responsible for Days Gone and the Siphon Filter games, and they had them working on a freaking live service God of War game, which was kind of a silly idea. I don't know. It sounds like a silly idea to me. I can't imagine that God of War fan base was just like dying for a bunch of bad monetization and crappy loot boxes and recycled skins in a new game, or being offered to pay real world money to solve problems faster. Rather than having the NPCs yak at them in 2.5 seconds. I don't know. This was a strange idea they had. Speaking of Herman Holst, though I didn't actually mention him in that previous section, he's the financial disaster at Sony that was obsessed with all these live service games. Herman Holst is gone. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. The guy who thought Concord was going to be the next Star Wars, his words, not mine, is gone. He was one of the two CEOs of Sony Interactive Entertainment, and he's been demoted to just the CEO of PlayStation Studios. So, okay, maybe he's not gone, but I think the Concord fiasco has finally caught up to him, and it's just so weird. This guy worked on Killzone. This guy's worked on Horizon games. I don't know what he saw in Concord. The game it looked mediocre at best. I don't know. I never played it. I'm not really sure what they were going for. A lot of people never played it. I'm not really sure what they were going for with that game. And then it just disappeared. So Herman saw something there, even if he was the only one. Hideaki Nishino has been set as the sole CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment after Herman's demotion. And we've been talking about this one for a few weeks now, but Forza Horizon 5 has now officially been announced for the PlayStation 5. It will be coming sometime this spring, and this is just the first of the big Microsoft titles coming to other consoles. Indiana Jones is confirmed as well down the line. We expect several other series to be coming as well. In fact, look for a video from us coming later in the week about this topic. Assassin's Creed Shadows had, I guess, sort of bad news. I'm not even really sure why this was a hoopla on social media last week, but it was. The game is being censored in Japan. There will be no beheading or limb dismemberment, and I'm not really very surprised about this, and I'm not sure if it's something a lot of people really know about. We often talk a lot about the censorship in games from other parts of the world when they come here to the States. Often the sexual elements are toned down in Eastern games. I don't always understand why, but I think a lot of it has to do with the differences in the rating systems between various countries, and they sometimes create these issues. So things get toned down because they think the appropriate rating for the game that they're making is a teen rating or even an E for everyone rating. And it may not have been something they would have had to censor for a comparable rating where they're from, particularly often in Japan. But for here, it has to be toned down. And so I think that the rating systems create some of this. So they end up self-censoring, and but many people don't know is that games in Japan and various other parts of the world from here in the States, or even from other Western studios, are often censored too. In Japan, in particular, violence, blood, and gore are often very censored in the Japanese versions of games, whereas sexuality is no big deal there. But violence and gore are. It's kind of like the reverse of here. People get all worked up about aspects, sexual aspects in games here, but violence is no big deal. And then in Japan, they don't care about bouncing jiggly boobs and butts, but then they get all kind of worked up about blood and gore and dismemberment. So yeah, many Japanese games that feature these elements are often made with a Western audience in mind, and then in fact toned down for their domestic release in Japan. I know this is true with the Metal Gear Solid series and the Resident Evil series. They have stated multiple times that the games are developed with the West in mind first, and then they censor their games to match Japanese sensibilities for the domestic release. So why people were shocked that Assassin's Creed was going to be toned down for its violence in Japan, I'm not really sure. I think that was a given. If you know anything about that kind of stuff in Japan, this was always going to happen given the gore and dismemberment that the game was going to have. So yeah. Patch 8 for Baldur's Gate 3 is coming out. This will be the last major update for the game. This will be Larian's last big update, and again, we've already stated they have stated their full focus is on their next title. But Patch 8 is going to add in 12 new subclasses, various general bug fixes, a photo mode, cross-platform co-op, and the Series S is finally going to get the split-screen co-op support, which is super exciting for Series S players. This is a phenomenal game, and all of Larian's recent games are just fantastic experiences in split-screen co-op. Me and my wife play them together. They're great experiences, and yeah, we're excited to see what Larian does next. Alright, and to wrap things up, it is our weekly rant about the state of Bioware. I don't know why I said it like that. If you haven't seen our last few news videos, let me get you up to speed real quick. Despite coming out to pretty good critical reviews, Dragon Age: The Veilguard has had a very mixed reaction from the fan base for Dragon Age. The director of Dragon Age: The Veilguard, Corinne Bush, resigned, which is corporate code word for fired. Since then, we now know that many members of the Dragon Age: The Veilguard staff have been let go. It appears the entire writing team has been fired, and various other members of BioWare have now been shuffled off to other EA studios, because according to EA, the rest of the team working on Mass Effect will not require their assistance. So, yeah. This means that BioWare has been downsized to just barely over 100 employees, and that their only assignment is creating Mass Effect 5. So, this is the studio's make-or-break moment. Unfortunately, the poor reception to Anthem, Mass Effect Andromeda, and probably some lingering resentments and due to the fiasco that was the Mass Effect 3's ending, which I will always state... the other 99% of that game is great. One of the just fantastic game. The ending is what it is. I like to pretend that the Citadel DLC is the actual ending. If you do that, I recommend it. You'll love it. It's a great ending. But yeah, they've had a few stinkers of titles post Mass Effect 3, and just the games have been very divisive. And now they're just kind of at that do or die moment. The good news in this is that their focus is on one game, probably for the first time in the studio's history. We saw that a former director and producer, Mark Darrah, said that a few weeks back, and that the Mass Effect 5 senior design team is comprised of several veterans who've worked on multiple games in the original trilogy. So you have designers and directors, lead designers, art directors, and animation directors that all worked on the original trilogy as the senior staff on this title. So that sounds really promising. There's an opportunity here for them to really get things back on track. The only member I'm aware of the senior developers that's not a veteran to the series was a writer on the Deus Ex games. So and she's now the head writer for Mass Effect 5. I'm not worried about that. Deus Ex games have a great story, great world building, great lore. Seems like they're in good hands there. So, yeah, that's pretty much it with Bioware. I just want to mention that I think all of this comes down. This is more a game industry in general part after this. So yeah, this comes down to the major problems that exist in the publishing model as it is, where a publisher can buy up a company, and then everything that company ever creates, their ideas and all of their creations become owned by that publisher, and those publishers are often filled with people in suits, and I hate to just use that as a disparaging term, but they're filled with board members and marketers and executives, and they don't always give a crap about these properties. They don't care about them as anything except a way to make money. And what happened to Bioware after the acquisition from EA is what happens when these kinds of people that just look at everything as money, and I'm not naive. Money makes the world go round. I get that. Things have to make money. But sometimes a product should be as it was to its fans. Anyway, that's when you get a room full of people who couldn't tell you the difference between Doom Guy and Mario, and they're now in charge of the creation of a franchise, and they're sticking their fingers in and meddling with the creative aspects of things they're not familiar with or know nothing about, you end up with these messes, and it happens so much. All we can really do, though, is we can all just take a moment and keep our fingers crossed and hope that Mass Effect 5 finally delivers. Because if not, it's going to be really sad to see, but this will probably be the end of Bioware, and it'll be a really sad note to see them heading out this way. Yeah, so we hope that's not the case, but it's a distinct possibility. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you found any of these stories interesting or funny. Just let us know down in the comments. If you're worried about any of these studios, or you're happy for any of these studios, let us know. We'd love to chat with y'all. And as always, from all of us here at Game Conclave, thank you so much for watching.